At Ridgeview Academy, a prestigious school that prides itself on diversity and unity, the facade begins to crumble when a black student is falsely accused of theft during a charity fair. As whispers turn into accusation and the community divides, it becomes clear that the truth is far more tangled than anyone could have imagined. Beneath the mask of charity and righteousness lies simmering prejudice and hidden agendas. With a determined teacher willing to dig deeper and a few unexpected allies stepping forward, a scandal threatens to unravel the very fabric of the school's reputation. But what happens when a startling discovery on a security tape puts everything and everyone on the line? Just when it seems the truth is about to come to light, an influential parent whispers a chilling warning to the teacher. You have no idea who you're dealing with. Back off, or you'll regret it. The sun shone brightly over Ridgeview Academy, a prestigious school nestled in an affluent part of the city. Ridgeview was known for its academic excellence and, at least on the surface, for its diversity. Each year, the school hosted a charity fair organized by the Parents Committee to raise funds for school needs and local charities. Parents, teachers, and students came together, turning the day into a celebration of unity and community. But beneath the surface, not everyone was as united as they seemed. Robert Johnson, a 14-year-old black student, stood behind his bake sale table, his eyes scanning the crowd. He and his mother, Mrs. Johnson, had baked dozens of cupcakes the night before. He was a bright and hard-working student who had earned a scholarship to study at Ridgeview. But he was always aware of the invisible barriers that existed around him. While he had made friends and earned the respect of his teachers, there was always an underlying tension from some parents who viewed him as an outsider. Next to him, Amanda Holmes, one of the most influential parents at the school and chair of the charity committee, was busy directing others. Amanda was the kind of person who thrived on attention and control. She often spoke about the importance of diversity and inclusivity, but her actions often betrayed her true feelings. She was particularly concerned with ensuring that her son, Zach, the captain of the football team and the future of the school, had every advantage possible. As the fair bustled with activity, Amanda's gaze fell on Robert. Her smile, intended for the other parents, faded when she looked his way. She had always been vocal about her disapproval of kids from underprivileged backgrounds attending the school on scholarships, and she had a particular distaste for Robert. In her eyes, he didn't belong in the same space as her son. "Look at him," Amanda whispered to another parent, a sneer forming on her lips. "He's probably here to get everything for free, like always." The other parent, hesitant but not wanting to challenge Amanda, nodded in agreement. Robert, feeling the weight of their eyes, kept his head down and focused on his table. He had faced these subtle, cutting remarks many times before, but today they cut deeper. As he handed a cupcake to a young girl with a shy smile, he could hear the murmurs of doubt and judgment surrounding him like a thick fog. The fair continued throughout the day, and as it wound down, the atmosphere remained upbeat until panic struck. A large sum of money collected from the donations had disappeared from the safe in the school's main office. Whispers spread quickly among the crowd, and parents and teachers started to gather, their faces tense with concern. Amanda wasted no time in making her suspicions known. "I saw Robert Johnson hanging around the donation table quite a bit," she declared loudly, pointing in Robert's direction. "I even saw him put something in his pocket when he thought no one was looking." Heads turned toward Robert, who stood frozen, his face pale. The whispers grew louder, and he could feel the weight of their judgment. Some of the students who had been friendly with him earlier in the day now looked at him with uncertainty. "Are you serious, Amanda?" one of the parents, Mrs. Carter, asked. She was one of the few who had always been kind to Robert and his mother. "We shouldn't jump to conclusions." Amanda, however, was resolute. "I'm not jumping to conclusions. I'm stating facts. We all know how these things happen." The implication was clear. They had already judged Robert, not because of what he had done, but because of who he was. The crowd's murmurs became an overwhelming noise in Robert's ears, filled with phrases like, "these kids," and "never should have been here in the first place." Principal Thompson, a stern man in his 50s, with a no-nonsense demeanor, stepped forward, sensing the growing chaos. "Everyone, please calm down. We will investigate this thoroughly. Robert, I need you and your mother to come in tomorrow to discuss this matter. Until then, let's not make any hasty accusations." But the damage was already done. The rumor spread like wildfire. In the school's chat groups and on social media, students began talking about the theft. Even Robert's closest friends started to distance themselves, not wanting to be associated with someone who was now the subject of scandal. Some messages were direct and harsh. "Why is he even here? Doesn't fit in anyway. Figures. They come here and ruin everything." That evening, Robert returned home feeling defeated and scared. His mother, Mrs. Johnson, was a strong woman who worked as a nurse at the local hospital. She had raised him with a strong sense of morality and justice. "I believe you, Robert," she said firmly. "But we need to be prepared to fight this. This isn't just about the money. It's about how they see us." Meanwhile, Miss Allison Clark, a young English teacher at Ridgeview who had been watching the events unfold, was troubled. She knew Robert well enough to believe he wasn't capable of stealing. She suspected that the accusations were rooted in something more insidious, racial prejudice. Determined to get to the bottom of it, she decided to conduct her own investigation. The next morning, Allison requested to review the security footage from the school's hallway cameras. She combed through hours of footage and finally found something. A video showing Zach Holmes, Amanda's son, nervously glancing around before approaching the safe. He quickly opened it, grabbed something, and hurried away. Clearly trying to avoid detection, Allison's heart pounded. She now had evidence that implicated Zach, but she knew this wouldn't be easy. Amanda was powerful and influential, and accusing her son of theft would undoubtedly cause a stir. She had to be smart about her next steps. Allison decided to approach Amanda first, hoping to resolve the situation quietly. She found her in the school parking lot after the morning drop-off. "Amanda, can I have a word?" Allison called out. Amanda turned, her face tight with annoyance. "What is it, Miss Clark?" "I've been reviewing the security footage from the charity fair," Allison said cautiously. "And I came across something concerning involving Zach." Amanda's eyes narrowed. "What are you trying to imply?" Allison showed her the footage on her phone. "I think it's clear that there's more to this story than what's been said. I'd like to give you the opportunity to address it before things escalate." Amanda's face hardened. "You have no idea who you're dealing with. I can make things very difficult for you. And for that boy. Maybe you should think carefully before you decide to play detective." Allison realized she was dealing with someone who wouldn't back down easily. She decided to take the matter to the principal. When Amanda heard that the principal wanted to speak to her about the footage, she was furious. She couldn't believe that a nobody like Allison Clark would dare accuse her son of such a thing. She decided to use her influence to discredit both Allison and Robert. She started calling other parents, spreading rumors that Allison was an inexperienced and overly sympathetic teacher, and that Robert was trouble. At the same time, she pulled Zach aside at home. "What were you thinking, Zach?" she hissed. "Why were you near that safe?" I just wanted to help with the fair, Mom," Zach stammered, but his face gave away his guilt. He had thought he could get away with it, but now he was caught in his own web of lies. "Listen to me," Amanda said, her voice icy. "You're going to deny everything. We're going to say that the footage is unclear and you were just checking if the safe was properly locked. Understood? Zach nodded. But deep down, he knew this wasn't going to end well. The next day, Allison noticed the atmosphere at school had shifted even more. Parents who had previously been cordial now looked at her with suspicion. She overheard them whispering in the halls, questioning her motives. "She's just trying to stir up trouble," one parent muttered. "I heard she's trying to make this into a racial thing. We don't need that kind of drama here." Despite the backlash, Allison pressed on. She spoke to Mrs. Johnson and Robert, keeping them updated on what was happening. She also suggested they get a lawyer, just in case things escalated further. Meanwhile, Zach continued to bully Robert. He and his friends made snide comments in the halls, intentionally bumping into him. It all culminated in a physical altercation one afternoon when Zach's friend, Kyle, pushed Robert against a locker, sneering, "You think you can just lie about all of us? We know what you really are." Robert, who had been trying to keep his head down, finally snapped. "I didn't steal anything, and you know it," he shouted. A shoving match ensued, and it wasn't long before teachers intervened, pulling them apart. The fight was a turning point. The news of it spread quickly, and parents began to demand more transparency from the school administration. Some were on Amanda's side, worried about the disruptive element Robert supposedly represented. Others, however, were starting to see through Amanda's facade and question her intentions. Tommy, Zach's friend, who had been a silent observer all this time, was feeling increasingly uneasy. He had known Zach for years, but he wasn't blind to his faults. The more he thought about it, the more he realized he couldn't keep quiet any longer. The truth was gnawing at him. One evening, he knocked on the door of the Johnsons' modest home. Mrs. Johnson answered, surprised to see a white boy standing on her porch. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice cautious. "I need to speak to Robert," Tommy said nervously. "It's important." When Robert appeared, Tommy looked at him, his face serious. "I need to tell you something about Zach." Tommy confessed everything he knew about Zach's plan to steal the money to impress a girl. He thought he could sneak in and out without anyone noticing. And when Miss Clark started looking into it, he panicked. "I wanted to speak up sooner, but I was scared. Amanda is intimidating." Robert listened, his emotions a mix of anger and relief. "Why now?" he asked. "Why didn't you say something before?" "Because I see what's happening to you. It's not right. And I know it's my fault for staying quiet, but I want to make it right," Tommy replied, his voice breaking. Mrs. Johnson, standing nearby, listened closely. "Thank you for coming forward, Tommy," she said softly. "But you know this will have consequences, right?" Tommy nodded. "I know, but it's the truth, and it needs to be said." With Tommy's testimony, Allison, Mrs. Johnson, and Robert went back to Principal Thompson. This time, the atmosphere was different. The principal knew the gravity of the situation had shifted dramatically. They called Amanda and Zach in once more. Amanda's usual confidence had begun to crack. She tried to maintain her composure, but it was clear she was losing control of the narrative. "This is ridiculous," she spat. "You're all trying to smear my family's name." Principal Thompson, however, was resolute. "Amanda, the evidence is clear, and now we have a witness. I'm afraid we have no choice but to take formal action." The fallout was swift. The school community, once divided, began to rally around Robert and his family. Parents who had initially been skeptical now saw Amanda's true colors. Local news outlets picked up the story, and it spread quickly. Amanda was removed from her role in the charity committee, and her husband filed for divorce, citing her unreasonable behavior as the last straw. Zach was suspended and required to write a public apology to Robert and the school community. For him, It was a humbling experience, one that forced him to confront the consequences of his actions. Ridgeview Academy decided to implement new policies focusing on diversity and inclusion, spearheaded by Miss Clark and a few other progressive teachers. They introduced workshops and programs designed to educate both students and parents on the importance of empathy, fairness, and understanding. Robert, for his part, found a new sense of purpose. He decided to become an advocate for fairness and equality within the school. While he was relieved his name had been cleared, he knew the fight wasn't over. There were still attitudes to change, still minds to open. In the months that followed, the atmosphere at Ridgeview began to shift. Students started speaking out more against injustices they witnessed, and the parents' meetings became forums for genuine discussion and change, rather than mere social gatherings. Mrs. Johnson became more involved in the school's new programs, becoming a well-respected voice in the community. She had always been proud of Robert, but now she felt a deeper sense of pride in knowing that they had both stood up for what was right. One afternoon, Robert spotted Zach in the school parking lot, sitting on a bench alone. Their eyes met, and for a moment, neither spoke. Then, to Robert's surprise, Zach stood up and walked over. "Listen," Zach said, his voice low. "I know an apology doesn't change much, but I'm sorry for everything." Robert looked at him, his expression unreadable. "You've got a long way to go, Zach, but thanks for saying it." Zach nodded, knowing he had a lot to prove, not just to Robert, but to himself and everyone around him. As Robert walked away, he felt a sense of closure. But he also knew that his journey was just beginning. There was still so much to do, so many barriers to break down, but he was ready. Ridgeview was not perfect, but it was changing. Slowly, people were starting to understand that true community meant embracing everyone, not just those who looked like them or shared their beliefs. And Robert was determined to be a part of that change, one step at a time. Thank you for listening to this powerful story of understanding and change. If you enjoyed it, please give this video a thumbs up and share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss another inspiring story. Your support means the world to us. Thank you, and see you in the next one.